Hello and welcome to another episode of Taylor Talks Comics. Today we're going to be going over the Mighty Thor Omnibus Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. Alright, thank you for joining me. This is going to be an overview of the Journey into Mystery, the Mighty Thor Omnibus Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. But first, make sure that you, if you do any comic book shopping, you shop over at organicpricebooks.com. You can use my promo code TaylorTalksComics, all one word, TaylorTalksComics. That'll save you $2 off your order. If you're going to put a bigger order in and order 4 or more books, you'll want to use my other promo code, which is TTC Ship It Together, all one word. TTC Ship It Together, all one word. And you can save 5% off of that order. All right, so this is Thor Omnibus Volume 1. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. This is the beginning of Silver Age Thor. This is what the book looks like outside of the dust jacket. So I have the DM variant, which I think the standard edition probably has the same image on the spine as underneath the dust jacket, but on my dust jacket the spine is a little bit different. And then on the back you see Mjolnir. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. So this omnibus collects Journey into Mystery, number 83 through 120, and annual number 1. You open it up there, you get a nice Kirby drawn image of Thor. And then you get the table of contents, the credit page. We get another image of Thor over here. Corey Settlemeyer is is the collection editor. And then over here you get the credits. So this is mostly Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This is the longest run that they did together, with the exception of Fantastic Four. There were some issues in the Thor where they didn't do consecutively. Like the Fantastic Fours, famously, they did 102 consecutive issues. This one, there were some fill-in issues here and there. In this omnibus, what would make Omnibus Volume 2 and 3, mostly 3. I think Kirby's run ends at 179 in Volume 3 of the omnibuses. But there are some fill-in issues, but it's the longest run they did with the exception of Fantastic Four. But there's also Larry Lieber writes 8 issues here, or is the scripter, I guess, at least. And then Robert Bernstein does 4 issues. On drawing duties, we have Kirby mostly, but Al Hartley does 1 issue. Joe Sinnott draws, looks like 4 issues, and Don Heck does 3. Then we get the great table of contents here with each title of each issue, the number of the issue, the month and date that it was published, and the page numbers. Always great credits or table of contents in these collections. And then we have the introductions from Stan Lee. So if you look in the table of contents, this book basically collects 3 of the Marvel Masterworks, volumes 1, 2, and 3 of the Mighty Thor Masterworks, clumped together and then put it in an oversized format like this. So each of those Masterworks had an introduction by Stan Lee. They put those introductions in the beginning of where those Masterworks would collect, because Stan Lee is very much talking about the forthcoming issues that you're about to read. So they do collect those. Like Stan Lee wrote this intro in 1991. And then here's the first issue of Journey into Mystery, number 83. So Journey into Mystery was an anthology title that Marvel had before. Then issue 83, they introduced Thor as the title character, or not title character, I guess, main character of the issue, and then he takes over the book from there. It does continue to be an anthology, but the main feature is Thor. So here's that image we saw earlier on the splash page here. But then you get 2 panels here of them introducing Donald Blake, and we get a nine panel grid, which is a little bit uncharacteristic of Kirby. He does do 9-panel grids from time to time, but it wasn't his norm. It wasn't his signature thing like it was for Ditko back in well, Ditko, most of his career, I guess he really preferred the 9-panel grid. But Donald Blake is this lame doctor who goes on this little exploration trip, I guess, finds this weird stick, gets trapped inside behind this rock, out of frustration, bangs the stick against the rock, and becomes Thor. And then that's the issue. So what I want to talk about, though, is, as I'm flipping through this, is that this was my first time reading through Silver Age Thor. I've always kind of had this preconceived notion from people that have talked to me about how it's really hard to get through. It can be really boring at times. This Shakespearean dialogue of the thous, theys, my, those, dost, who should be worthy kind of Shakespearean dialogue can be cumbersome to read and all that stuff. So it really held me back. I only read like a few issues of Thor back, through different like best of collections and whatnot. And I always enjoyed them for the most part, but this is my first full read through. And I have to say, all those preconceived notions, anyone who ever told me all those things, they're all liars. They're all lying to me. This was an enjoyable read. I powered through this omnibus in less than a week. I was reading it with my buddy Neil. He was also reading it at the same time, and he even surpassed where I was. He was enjoying it so much. So I love Kirby Fourth World stuff. Jack Kirby's the greatest. He is the absolute GOAT in comic books, the greatest of all time. There's no one like him. And there's so much output that he had. So I love his Fourth World stuff. I love his Eternals. And you can really see that kind of idea of him really wanting to explore different mythology, whether it be Norse mythology, something that has been written prior to, or something that he created all on his own, like Fourth World or Eternals. He likes to explore that mythology, but likes to intersperse it with a bunch of like science fiction kind of stuff, which just makes for a great recipe for some great comics. And I was just blown away about how fun this run was. So in these early issues, you do get like Thor fighting communists and Thor fighting monsters of the week kind of thing. It really gets cooking towards the end of this omnibus, but by the time it gets cooking, you're really hooked. I'd say probably, well, is this the first Tales of Asgard, actually, now that I'm here? No, this is not the first. So eventually you get these Tales of Asgard backup strips, and these were absolutely amazing. So first in Journey of the Mystery, you get like 16, 17 pages of Thor, and you'll get like 5 to 6 pages of these Tales of Asgard backup strips. And what Kirby was doing with this was, at first he was really just exploring and rewriting these mythological stories of Norse mythology, not to sound redundant. And he uses like these big 4-panel grids, and it really harkens to what it has to be. Like I always heard that Jack Kirby was very much influenced by like Milt Caniff, Hal Foster, and trying to think of the other old cartoonist from back in the day, Alex Raymond. That's who it was. But these are really much, you can see his Hal Foster influence. His Hal Foster in the Prince Valiant days were really influential into these Tales of Asgard strips, because they have these big panels. Mostly no dialogue. The Prince Valiant strips had no dialogue, but these do have a little bit, but it's mostly told in these captions and just telling these stories. And these are all stories that take place before Journey into Mystery 83. So you'll see like Thor as a kid, Loki as a kid. You'll see before Thor and Loki were even around, just some days of Odin being around. So each issue you're getting 2 stories, the Thor issue and then the Tales of Asgard. And it's such an enjoyable reading experience because you're reading 2 different stories, but they're melding together towards the end. And it's just like it's like world building in the best way. It's really building all of what we know about Thor in any sort of modern run the foundation was laid throughout these pages by Jack Kirby. Here we see an appearance by Hela, right there. And I love these big 4-panel grids that Kirby was working with. But yeah, so then towards the end of this omnibus is like around issue 120. These do have the letter pages too, which are always fun. One thing I really loved about reading the letter pages on this particular omnibus was the Marvel checklist, because it gives you like all the other issues coming out that same month So you can really see, like, if you're in the know of what your Marvel knowledge is, you can read, like, oh, the Fantastic Four was on 35. I remember that issue. Spider-Man 21. Like, you can see what issue and stories they're at because the Marvel Universe is interconnected. But anyways, towards the end of this, that Shakespearean dialogue really doesn't come into play until, like, the last issue of this omnibus. Like, Stanley all of a sudden just hits it hard. He goes hard with that Shakespearean dialogue. But by then, I'm so invested into the story and that I don't even care. One of the great stories throughout this omnibus was the Absorbing Man, who's this guy that has this power to literally anything he touches, his body absorbs into that. So if he touches metal, his body becomes all metal. This is his origin story right here. Great transformations all throughout this omnibus by Kirby too, whether it be Absorbing Man or Donald Blake turning into Thor, or whether it be Mr. Hyde transforming into Mr. Hyde. Always fun and inventive. But yeah, Absorbing Man, anything he touches, he turns into. So it's like really creative on how Thor has to defeat him. Because like if Absorbing Man touches Mjolnir, who's made out of Uru metal, then he'll turn into that and become unstoppable. But he comes back too later on. But the thing that I always loved and wanted to read about Kirby's Thor, was the kind of stuff that I loved about Fourth World and Eternals. I wanted this this mythological but cosmic adventure in space. And you'll see that start to build here and there throughout this omnibus, but it really gets cooking towards the end. And it's got me excited. I'm already into what is Volume 2. I don't have the Volume 2 omnibus because it's out of print, unfortunately. But I read like the next 10 issues digitally, and then I'm on the Epic Collection Volume 3 to finish out that part before I can get to Omnibus Volume 3 and 4. So I'm going strong. Absolutely having a lot of fun with this run. Don't listen to anybody that tells you that this isn't a blast. Like, just these giant flying pirate ships, Norse ships. Like, there's so much. The character designs in these are so great. The fights. That's one thing I really was impressed by, too. Is, like, I did a video on Jack Kirby's Silver Age Captain America omnibus last year, and there was the fight choreography that really impressed me because Captain America has this very like gymnastic kind of agile fighting routine. Well, the fights in this are like these like big giant guys with fists just pounding into each other. The fight scenes are so much like more brutal with Thor, so it's just great to see another talent of Kirby that in his fight choreography can even choreograph different types of fights. But yeah, super enjoyable run. Absolutely loved it. It was in this omnibus that just got reprinted. I think it's still in print. Go and buy this and give it a shot. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it as much as I did. Also, just a quick bit of plugging. I do a live show every week, typically on Tuesdays at noon. If you go in the live tab in my YouTube channel, you can look at all the previous episodes. And I go over all the comic book news of the week and have a live chat with people in the chat. I guess I should go over the back matter too, right? There's the standard edition cover there. My book is separating a little bit, which is unfortunate, but what can you do? Here's some reprint covers that reprinted some of the same material. Here's the original cover of Journey into Mystery, where it even talks about how there's like more Stonemen in the background, but they wanted to change it to have less, to really let Thor shine. And then some original art pages. Yeah, so I do a weekly live show. Make sure you check that out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment down below. I love talking comics, so comment down below with your experience with Thor, if you want to try this out, or if you have any opinions, anything I didn't point out that you want to point out. And yeah, thank you guys for watching.